now.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. There's a bit of a change of roles today. We're normally interviewing other people. And then I kind of thought, well, maybe we should interview ourselves because we have, like I say, interviewed a lot of other people. There's a few things happening in the organisation that we thought would be good to share with everyone. And there was a recent study on child-to-parent abuse, which was really interesting reading. So we might start with that. I know Ayse and I have both read it, and it was quite interesting. So let me ask you, Ayse, when you saw this report, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was, why?
Okay.
I think these studies are really good, and I think we need to appreciate them and all the hard work that goes into them.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you're going to be doing a study, it needs to be more thought out than what it was.
Right.
Because what the study basically, and I read the full study, I think, a few times, what the study basically was saying that children are more likely and have been more abusive towards their parents during lockdown.
Right.
And that goes for all forms of domestic abuse, regardless of age. But if we're just looking at child-to-parent violence here, which is what the study's about, it's not just about looking at children being abusive towards their parents during lockdown, it's what was happening before that.
Right.
Children aren't born to abuse. Children aren't, naturally, they don't, from the age of 1, they don't aspire to go on to abuse. It's a case of what's happened to them between point A and point B, where they are being or showing abusive characteristics. So, and that can reflect on previous domestic violence, mental health issues, young carers, whatever that might be. But that study didn't kind of represent that for me. I found myself feeling a little bit upset with it. And
Right.
I did. I was a little bit upset with it. Yeah, well, I have a lot of respect for people that do research. A lot of respect. I highly do respect them. However, what about the kids that have witnessed domestic abuse, or whatever the reasons might be for them being abusive, or that have come out of it? Yeah. What did they do? What did the parents do? How did they work in unison? How did they work collaboratively to support and help these children? Because it's not, yes, the parents are suffering. Of course, we work with child-to-parent abuse. We know that. But like I said, children aren't born abusers. So the study didn't represent the families where actually child-to-parent abuse was less of an issue. It did state at some point that because kids are no longer in school, then that stress has been taken away, and parents, feel that they don't have to worry about that anymore, and the children are okay. But why were they feeling stressed about school in the first place? What was that anxiety, or whatever that might be? Do you know what I mean? It just wasn't. It was very much focused on during point A and point B, but actually, no, sorry, point B and point C. But actually, there's always a point A.
Yeah, I guess like any study, it's based around what you're trying to prove, and I guess it sounds like they were trying to prove that incidents of child-to-parent violence, because they keep calling it violence, and as we know, abuse isn't just violence, and most of the parents, a lot of the parents that we talk to, it's more around that emotional harm that's done rather than the violence in itself. So it was very much aimed at trying to prove that it had gone up over lockdown, and it seemed to almost a third of the people interviewed said that the actual violence had gone down, and which was kind of brushed over as maybe that was just a blip, or something else was was to deal with that. And they went to all the police forces. Only 19 responded, and a few were saying that they hadn't seen an increase. But I guess if you're trying to prove something, it depends on it depends on the questions that you ask. You're always going to. It's a bit like that famous study with identical twins when they're separated and how similar they all were and all that, but they never really said how they differed, because that's what I want to prove. So
that's what they were looking for.
Yeah. So was there anything from that that you felt was positive from that study, from that recent one, which we won't mention?
Well, definitely that there's a need, that it happens, and that families need support sooner rather than later, and try and avoid children from being criminalized. But I just think there should be more study on the reasons why children turn to becoming abusive, whatever that may look like for them, rather than concentrating, which is very important, on the actual abuse itself. Because if we know why they're abusing, then there can be a lot more work around that to try and prevent.
Okay. So what about this then, as a suggestion?
So
we have we've got statistics for at least 600 plus families.
Yes.
So why don't we do a report? Oh.
Yeah, but see, what you're doing now, Joseph, is you come up with these fantastic ideas and then you just leave them with me. and then we look at them together. I think us writing a report would be absolutely fantastic. However, and I'm going to be very honest here, we don't have a doctorate. We're not we're not a professor on whatever uni, and people like us are not taken seriously. And because our stats prove that these children are not born abusers, and our stats prove that actually there is a way out, and our stats also prove, whether parents like it or not, that they have a part to play in it. It's not just all them. There's environmental factors, there's outside influences. The child might have SEN, and no SEN means that they're abusive. There are so many different factors, and collectively the family needs help, support, whatever that might look like for them. And unless you have little letters behind your name, and unless you have the title of professor or an academic, whatever that might be, you and I can be talking to a blue in the face and saying, actually there is a mum and dad in this household, and they both are working, and they're both extremely kind and lovely to their children. However, this and this and this is happening because he's a young carer, because he has an abusive sister in the home with a disability, and this is why he's seeking attention through being abusive, or whatever that might be. There's also the PlayStation scenario.
So what we need to do then, to add weight to it, is to maybe have someone who has got letters behind their names write a foreword to it, maybe.
But it shouldn't be that way, should it?
No, it shouldn't, but that's life. That's what we're dealt with.
This is where my stubbornness kicks in, because it actually shouldn't be that way. It should be the people in the forefront dealing with it. People like, say, Al Coates, that deals with child-to-parent abuse, the man works bloody hard. He works really hard, and he has all the experience, like personal experience, as well as helping other people, And he's not problem focused. He's naturally not problem focused. And I have a lot of admiration for Al Coates. And he's in the forefront working with the families. He's on the forefront managing people who work with families. And yet you just think, well, actually, we've got over 600 cases where sometimes we've screwed up. We've got to be honest here. We haven't saved everybody, and it's not for us to save them. It's for them to save themselves. But it's not. We've failed many families. But in hindsight, we've also supported many families where they've changed their life around. where they're communicating better. So why the hell should we have little numbers and letters behind our name to prove a point that actually this family needs help and not to be labelled? And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people who say they're non-judgmental are very goddamn judgmental, because if that's what you're looking to prove, that's what you're going to be asking for. Oh, you got me started.
But see, this is the thing, right?
But
if the other side of the argument isn't heard, i.e. our side, regardless of the letters and all that, then all people will have to go on is papers written by academics.
Yeah, but most people that would read those papers are people that want to see that anyway.
We'll have to do it. There's no other way around it. Otherwise, that voice don't get heard.
I think parents should make a stand. I think that voice. I think we're there to facilitate that voice, but it's not our voice that matters. It's the parents' voice that matters. It's the children's voice that matters.
Yeah. But our paper will be solely based on that. It won't be on how we support families. It will be what families are telling us. It will be their voice. Yeah, exactly. Got nothing to say, have you? Anyway,
but what did you find positive regarding that report?
I think, again, it's highlighted a situation that you and I know 5 years ago would have just been, God, does that happen? So I think in that sense, academics do highlight this stuff. I mean, I don't think it would have gone to Parliament without the Oxford study. I don't think that would have happened. I think it would have just been still in the dark. We still even haven't got a definition of what child-to-parent abuse is, which is a failing for this many years, because organisations like to have something where they can fit it in a box, but our box hasn't even been written yet. It's still at that stage. So I think with all the studies, there's still a long way to go, but without those, people would still be looking at us weirdly and saying, "Are you sure you're talking about child-to-parent abuse and not adult, not child abuse?" So I think that's a positive thing. I think there's more papers coming out, more books coming out, but I don't know, like you say, the parents. You get studies that might have 10 or 20 families in it, and you think, well, that's not very big. Well, we've got over 600, and if we do it right and put the families' voices across, at least we can say we did our bit, regardless of whether we've got letters behind our names or not. Mind you, you have got a letter. You went to university. You've got some letters, haven't you?
But just because you go to university doesn't mean you have little letters. I can make it up.
Yeah.
Put it there. But I think it's twofold child-to-parent abuse, isn't it? You either look at it with, and that's where I think we're back smack bang in the middle. You either look at it as, child-to-parent abuse, obviously rubbish parenting, or you look at it the other way, where it's, child-to-parent abuse, the child's an abuser, this poor parent, right? But actually, it's smack bang in the middle. It's neither or, it's smack bang in the middle. What has led, and even though the past doesn't matter, but actually you need to kind of look into being an abuser, where no matter what age you are, you could be 50, 60, you could be 5, yeah? And I don't like using the word abuser, but let's just use it for clarification. Being an abuser is not something that should come naturally, unless you have a complete and utter mental health issue that I would never be able to understand, right? So when people look at it as child's an abuser, oh my God, which in itself is money generating, yeah? And then you look at the other way, you're a bad parent. See, you need parenting classes. You need to do a chore chart. Actually, it might be useful to some, I'm assuming it's not useful to a lot of people. It has to be very, very bespoke to each family. And each member of that family needs to feel heard, supported, and actually that the person, the practitioner or therapist in front of them genuinely wants this family to do well. We don't look at children and say you're a bloody abuser, or the parent and say, parenting, you need to go to parenting class. It's not about that. So this is where these studies really get on my nerves.
Okay. Yeah.
Enough said on that, I think.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
why Joe loves working with me, by the way, guys. He sometimes appreciates this passion. Sometimes he just rolls his eyes and walks away.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking when I walk away. That's not just me walking away.
No, or I'll phone him and have a rant. Did you read this?
So that's one thing I think we need to do, because otherwise these voices are just going to be, you know, where you get a study and there's like a little comment in speech marks, and that's basically what you get from the child or the parent, and that's really it. Whereas this needs to be more the client's voice than ours, but it's just a vehicle to do it. Like you say, otherwise it's just going to be parents that can be bothered to fill out surveys, and not all our parents can be bothered to do that. So I don't think there's a broad enough representation to make assumptions about child to parent abuse from a little small study like that. So there needs to be ongoing work, and I think right. So that's something we've got to look at in September.
Sue Fletcher's just written something that I completely agree with. I believe it'll be about rebuilding the family relationship, incorporating the whole family. Absolutely. You can't work with the child in isolation or the parent in isolation. And the only time we will do that, and it will only be for a few sessions, if we believe, and it's mainly the parent, I'm going to be honest here, if the parent wants us, when they walk through our doors and they want us to fix the problem, and the problem being the child, then we will speak to the parent on their own. And it's not about saying to them they're wrong, but it's about actually thinking that way. Is it useful?
Yeah.
And what,
there's definitely, it's definitely worthwhile, like speaking to the parent on their own, speaking to the child on their own, and then eventually getting everyone together, because it's a unit that needs, and not that it needs fixing, but everyone is affected by it. Siblings, grandparents, sometimes the isolation is just horrendous. And we also need to work in a closer partnership with all the other agencies that are supporting this family.
I think we do that. I think we do that pretty well.
Yeah, and even because often what our issue isn't often the parent not wanting to come in, it's the child, isn't it? And getting across to the child that we want to be supportive. We're not pointing fingers of blame at you, but you are part of the solution to this, and we need your input. So sometimes it's difficult. So that's where maybe wider family or school mentor or someone can get involved and talk to this young person and say, look, why don't you just at least have a conversation and start it that way? So I think the family is important. Any resources in the community, we would often signpost to other agencies if we can't provide what it is the families are saying that they want.
Yeah, but I think the message needs to be brought out there. Don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
Do not make assumption that it's a bad parent. Do not make an assumption that that the child is this child that he or she is being so disrespectful. How dare they? Because A, you've lost them, and B, that's not the way you should be working. It's not about us judging. It's about what is it they want. Moving forward, what is it they want? And I think that's where our frustration lies. And the one thing that we do very well is listen and find the family strengths. What is it, that question that you asked that family that I absolutely fell in love with, but I keep asking you what it was?
Oh, what is it about this family that tells you it's worth fighting for?
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes every family is unique, isn't it? That's the whole thing. We often try to fit people into programs, whether it's suitable or not, rather than looking at the uniqueness of each family, what strengths, like you said, what strengths they've got, who else can support them in this with this current presenting problem, who else can they rely on, who else can we bring into the sessions, even if it's a cousin or mum's best friend, and anyone that wants the best for that family, if they're involved, and we work better with the other professionals involved, we're going to get to a place that's beneficial for the family a lot sooner. That thing about the more people that child listens to and respects and is there to support, not to put down, the more likely we are to have success in a shorter amount of time rather than taking years.
I'm going to quote Sue again. The parents are usually already blaming themselves. They don't need a professional or anyone else blaming them too. I think this is what prevents many families seeking help. And she's absolutely right. And I think Sue and everyone else that's listening, all 5 people that are listening right now, it is a case of when parents walk through the door, are you just another service? And this isn't me dissing services at all, because we work with many services who, we enjoy working with. But when your child is abusing you, no matter what that looks like, you walk through our doors and you think, oh God, what have I, they're going to tell me that I need to do something that doesn't fit my family, and culturally we won't be able to do that, and blah, 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 blah. Actually, it's not about what we believe works. It's about what they believe that will work for them. Because there are moments when they are getting along as a family, even if that's for 30 seconds, pick up on those 30 seconds, what is happening. And when children say, I want my mum or my dad to listen to me, that confuses a lot of people most of the time. Whereas actually what that child is trying to say is, I want you to just put everything down and just give me 10 minutes. Just give me 10 minutes. But it's very hard when it's about yourself. I'm always banging on about my daughter who's going through, she's 11, going on 20, blah, blah, blah. And I will say to Joe, right, what do I do? How do I handle this situation? Because when you think like a parent, as you do, you're more emotional. So it's just having that space to have those conversations. Is what you're doing useful? No. Then what could you do instead?
And I guess that's why we chose the solution focus approach. After a while, it didn't come naturally straight away, because we were very, very problem saturated and problem focused, and it became very stressful, very argumentative, very self-blaming.
If I had read the research that's out there on CPV, which is what they call it, but child to parent abuse, when we were problem focused, I would have seen nothing wrong with it. I would have taken it very much as a matter of fact.
Yeah. What, the way we were working before?
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it was stressful for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So the way we work now is so much different, and it's got its criticisms, and I'm starting to not criticize it, because I still think I wouldn't go back to any other way of working. in terms of, you know, like you're saying, the strengths. If something's working, keep doing it. If it's not, then we need to look at a different way of doing it. And we do listen to the problem. I think, well, when some families are quite relieved after they've had 6 or 7 services that you don't have to come in and tell your story over and over again, because it just becomes tiresome. And they're quite surprised, I think, when you're asking, so what needs to happen so we don't have to see you again? It's a completely different kind of conversation. And it's not really down to us to judge whether they've chosen the right thing to work on. And that's a difficult one, I think, at first when you're working this way, because you think, really, are they really choosing the right thing to work with?
We're the experts.
Shouldn't they be choosing something else to work on? But I think it's almost like changing a mindset, teaching a process. There's a problem. What would I want instead? How would I know it was happening? Who can help me with this? And what will I do when I have a setback? How will I manage it? And that's really that's it in a nutshell, I suppose. And for some people, it's too simplistic. It can't possibly work. It can't possibly work with the complex needs that we have with the families that we meet. Do you see what I'm saying? How can it possibly work? How can that possibly work? And that's where a lot of the criticism comes in.
Why do you have so much hope when you're working with a family? It doesn't matter what the presenting issue is or issues are. Why do you have so much bloody hope that this family can reach whatever their preferred future is? Or even just the tiniest, smallest, tiny step forward? Why do you keep going on, not giving up?
I was going to say stubbornness. If you go into a meeting with a family and don't believe that they can make the changes that are going to benefit them, that will come across. It will stop you being curious. This is the thing, isn't it? If you believe that a certain label that a child has, or the amount of years that this problem's been going on, and the amount of different services that they've tried, if you get sucked into that narrative, then you stop being curious. You stop asking those simple questions. So how will you know things are better? What will be changed? What will be different? Because then you start to make judgments. So it's having a completely open mind, knowing that they will know deep down what will work. It may not come out in the first couple of sessions. These things have a way of just evolving over time. You know, you come in with one issue and you start with that, but then the family might say, actually, the real issue is X, Y, and Z. Okay, let's work with that. But once small changes start to happen, that builds hope in itself, not just in the practitioner, but in the family.
What about setbacks? Because sometimes we work with families and they're doing great, and there's little bumps in the road, and they're working over the bumps and they're doing okay, and then this dramatic thing happens. How do you deal with that?
That's one of the things that I've been battling with recently, because we've met so many brilliant practitioners since lockdown, and I've been reading a lot of loads of stuff. I don't think personally I do enough of that. So if there was a setback, or if there was a bump in the road, how would you manage it? How would you cope with it? Who could you go to for support? Why is this person so supportive? What is it you will do and learn from that? Because I think part of the way we were taught solution focused is go with what the client wants. How will they know it's happening? Get a big picture of that. What small step can you take to get you there on this scale? But we never really I don't talk about coping enough. And I think that's where I need to change my practice, because I think deep down I thought if I start talking about coping, it's almost like saying they can't do it. But actually it's not. It's just saying you can do it, but just in case life throws something at you, which it does, how do you think you'll manage it? So yeah, and that is life. So that's something I'm definitely going to be doing more of. I think also the chat with Rachel Gillibrand was an eye-opener for me, because we'd seen that chat before and about the neuroscience and the language of hope. But actually, what she's saying is it's how we make, if we can't get the creative side of our brains working, we can never solve a problem, because we only see it one way and we get stuck. So it's then looking at how do we have those conversations that start that creativity flowing, because creativity will lead to possibilities. So when you're thinking creatively, you can start thinking, well, there may be another way out of this problem that I haven't thought about. So that starts to build possibilities. Then once you've got the possibilities, then hope drives it. Hope doesn't come first. I think creativity comes first. Do you know what I mean? If I can't think creatively, I've got nowhere to go. I'm stuck in this box and I can't get out. And you can train the brain to be more creative, apparently. So I need to look into that. I think that's something where looking forward to, even crosswords or doing some artwork. It's just getting those creative juices flowing, because that's what's going to make us find other ways out of a problem. And that was fascinating. That brain imaging, if anyone's seen it, of when the brain is being creative, it lights up like a Christmas tree. So
I enjoyed that. We've actually got a question from someone. So what happens when you want to help your 18-year-old, but you get cut off because they are classed as adults? Someone had to go there. It's really difficult.
In terms of services, it becomes more difficult, because then what services are saying is, because he's an adult, then there's other avenues open. The thing that's so hard with child-to-parent abuse is that unconditional love for your child, which is tested. I get that. I mean, tested to the limit, but you can't just throw them out on the street. And I think what services think is, well, he's 18, just throw him out. Do you know what I mean? Well, why are you putting up with it as an adult? But we, as a service, we're not supposed to work with over 18s, but we have done.
I think it's the case because, all children can vote with their feet to a certain degree. But I think it's a case of what's really hard is if that 18-year-old doesn't see the need to receive support, and it doesn't have to be, because child-to-parent abuse is a knockoff something else, isn't it? Child-to-parent abuse never comes first. Something has to come before that. And unless that person kind of sees the need to accept and be willing to seek some support, your hands are tied, because they can be the only ones asking for it. So if they've got, I think the same, it's unless they recognize it themselves as a parent, you're in a very, very, very difficult situation. But the other thing is, what you can do is come and talk to us, call us, email us, come and talk to us. At the moment, we're really rubbish on phones. I'm telling you now, because we're so busy. And obviously it's just Joe and I in the office. So if you call us, you've left about 10 voicemails, sorry. But do look on the website. Do look at our FBS chats. Start learning and educating yourself with the process of what you can do as a parent to help your child. And he or she may not even realize you're doing it, because it's very, very, very subtle. It's managing those times that are difficult better, and it's making the most of those times where things are okay. We're highlighting them, amplifying them, and looking at where the strengths are. I think Joy's just... So another person, my son was in a happy family unit, but he got so angry as a teenager, we did not know where to turn to get help. He is happy now, but we struggled when he was 18. Absolutely. And a lot of parents will be, because they hang on and on and on and on and on, thinking it might be a phase, or where do I go? What if people start judging me? And then they turn 18, and hopefully, like this person's, things are okay now. But if they're not, the only thing you can do is change what you do. You can't change them, but you can influence them. Does that make sense?
Well, it's like we said earlier. If you don't do something different, then it basically just goes into a circular kind of repeating pattern.
Same outcome.
Same outcome. So something has to break that pattern, that cycle. And generally, unfortunately, it's when we're dealing with hormonal teenagers, it's often down to the adult to make those changes first, because a teenager's brain and hormones are all over the place, and there's no point in talking to someone when they're emotionally aroused, because they're just not thinking straight, they're just not listening, and it becomes that battle of wills, and the arguments just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then often you feel guilty and you feel sad, and this repeats itself, and it's a horrible cycle. So something has to break it. Sometimes we try solving a problem with the same thing over and over again, and if it's not working, sometimes we have to look back and say, this isn't working, I need to try something else. And sometimes it could be just try something bizarre and weird that your child would not expect. Just so all of a sudden there's a shock. I think there was someone, I don't suggest you do this, I just read this somewhere the other week, but I'd give you a flavour.
Don't try this at home, folks.
Yeah. So they had a daughter that kept coming in late, climbing in at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and everything they tried just wasn't working. And their therapist said, why don't you try something that she just would not expect? Just do something completely different. So they waited on her bed with 2 water pistols. So when she climbed in at 2 in the morning, they just fired all these water pistols at her. And all 3 of them just burst into laughter, actually, funny enough. But it then opened up a more serious conversation, whereas before it's, where you been, blah, 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 and it just ends up in this cycle. So sometimes doing something different, just think outside the box. Sometimes it might work. And like I say, we don't know what's going to work with every family until we've had those meetings, until we've listened to what's already been tried. And sometimes we give up on things a bit too soon. Sometimes to change a behavior which has become automatic, it takes a while. Like the lady was saying, it took till he was 18 for things to settle down. And brilliant on those parents that they stuck with it for that long. But we've had cases where the child has had to be removed. And sometimes if negotiating and negotiating and negotiating doesn't work, you're only left with, if you're not going to listen, I'm going to have to do something more drastic. And sometimes if you're in danger, that is calling the police. Even though we don't want to criminalize young people, if all you're left with and negotiating hasn't worked, and you've tried all the support, and you're involved, family members that the child respects and listens to, sometimes you just have to be forced to make that change. And I hate to say it, but sometimes that just has to happen, because if a child took out a knife, and which has happened, and the parent's calling me, I'm saying, well, why aren't you calling the police? Because he's angry and he's got a knife and he's in his bedroom, and you don't know what's going to happen to you or your sibling. So sometimes that's all you're left with. And you have to make those really hard decisions, as much as you love them, because because letting it go, saying no doesn't mean you don't love someone. Saying no says, actually, if I don't put boundaries in place for you, you will have no self-control. As a person, you're you're out of control, not just with me, but when you go out.
Yeah,
And that's a real difficult one.
Our primary role as parents is to keep our children safe. And sometimes if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. But I absolutely admire every single person that walks through our doors. And I'm talking about the parents now, because 99% of them have been through wars, their own wars. And yet they walk through our doors hoping for change. They might not know what that looks like when they first walk through the door, but they're hoping for change. And the main change is they want their child to be okay and healthy human beings that thrive. It's not even about the abuse most of the time, like you said before, and then they keep walking through over and over again, you know, and it's, no, we've got to do this. And that sends a massive message to the kids. My parents aren't giving up on me. And, you know, quite rightly, some parents that we've worked with are at a point where they go, you know what, don't care. I don't care. I don't care anymore. Because it is really, really difficult. Living with child-to-parent abuse is extremely, extremely difficult. But they are children that need support. And they are children that need hugs. And they are children that need boundaries. And sometimes the parents, well, most of the time, the parents can be fantastic, lovely, brilliant role models, but there's issues at school. So then that kind of, you know, that's out of the parents' control at that point. And there's only so much you can do. So many times you can go to a school and ask for support and, you know, my child's being bullied, or this is happening, or that's happening. But when the parents realise actually the small changes that they can make can have a knock-on effect with their kids, they start to see movement.
And you don't, sometimes, like we say, it can be the smallest, the smallest of changes. I think often we go for the thing that's causing the biggest problem and try and tackle that, and it's just too big a mountain to climb. So sometimes we just start small, start with the small things, you know. Otherwise, what happens is you just get this. You're just going to get constant arguing, and there are still things as parents that are within our control. Because often parents tell us that he controls me. Often we hear that, don't we? That he's like a partner. He's not like my son. He's not like my daughter. He's like my partner telling me what to do and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that there is an element of control there. So it's about parents as loving, caring parents taking back some of that control just a little bit at a time. And that might be, no, I'm not driving you to Johnny's house because the way you talk to me, when you start talking to me a bit better, then I'll be your taxi driver again. Or, you know, any other little things like that. If they're safe at home, sometimes just going out and not telling them where you're going.
Even sometimes when your teenager or whatever says something in a way that you don't appreciate, just asking them to repeat it in a nicer way helps. So rather than reacting to the attitude, I hear what you're saying, but do you want to just ask me that again in a way that I will find more useful, or whichever way you want to ask it, rather than saying, who do you think you're talking to? Which, yes, the parent is absolutely right, but actually, does that help the situation at that time? No. So do you want to just say that again, this time without the swear words, maybe? And just add a little bit of humour there. And I know it's really, really difficult because what you don't want to do is kind of give them leeway to talk to you like that. But what you're doing, in essence, is showing them a better way of communicating. So I've heard what you've said, but I'd like you to repeat that in a way that's more useful or kinder or without swear words. And then when they do it, just respond, however, yeah, okay, or whatever it might be. Because reacting like that it's not always helpful.
What's lovely about working with families is when you're in a session and the child or the parent starts to talk about something that they've heard for the first time, And it's almost like, wow, I didn't know he felt that way. I didn't know I didn't know he wanted to spend time with me, because when I am with him, he talks to me, it's horrible. You know, so those little insights are lovely to watch, and knowing what difference it makes if they were able, because it's healthy communication is a key. It's got to be key to this, and it's finding a way. And I know it's hard to reach out for help, because you know, or you might feel that you failed, or you might feel, well, yeah, but what if social services get involved and my kids get taken away? And but sometimes you need that someone who's completely neutral to ask you some really funny questions, which we ask, and you'll be amazed what you find out about each other that you probably knew deep down, but it was never really vocalized. And the language is powerful when you hear it coming out of someone's mouth. You think, wow, I kind of guessed it was there, but I didn't really know that that's what it was. So if anyone's struggling to come forward, I would urge you to at least, like Ayse says, maybe not, maybe our phone we haven't been answering very often, but an email or something, just to have a conversation, because otherwise you may have to wait years for things to turn around, and sometimes it may.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, yeah, don't feel stigmatized, don't feel embarrassed by it. We all need support sometimes.
Yeah, and you know what? I need support all the time. The clients that I work with, I tap into what they're good at, and then I ask them for favors. You know, whatever it might be. And one thing I love this part though, is when I'm working with a client and I think either a client that I've worked with before or a client that we're still working with but's come a long way. Actually, I'm like, can I tap into your experiences and talk to this parent for me? Utilize everybody's skills, because actually I've never been through domestic abuse. I've never self-harmed. I've never been through child to parent abuse, although if I do, I know where to go. And so sometimes it's just nice tapping into other people, which we have fantastic parents and young people that support in that respect. We could say, you know what, can you just have a 5-minute conversation just so they can see that there is light at the end of the tunnel? Because a lot of people that come to us have been through tons of services before they knock on our door.
Yeah.
And it's the mistrust, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And you become fatigued, I guess. You become service fatigued. What's the point? Because nothing's worked so far. And the reality is, no matter what support you get, wherever you go, it's always going to be down to the family to make the changes, because the change will happen outside of the session. It won't. You get insight in the session, but to make behavioural changes, always going to be down to the family to make those, because we can't be there 24/7. So they're going to have to do something different. And all we can promise is that we'll listen to what you have to say and look at possibilities. Because without possibilities, you kind of you feel you're stuck and you're in a dead end. And we do get volunteers from families that have come through it, and it's brilliant, because they're talking from a position of really not knowing exactly what you've been through, but obviously knowing a lot more than we've got that experience of talking to maybe hundreds of families, but like Ayse said, not having lived through it. But yeah, whenever families have come through the other end, and if they want to volunteer, they're always a really good resource. And we've evolved since 2012. We don't just do family work now, because we think to make real progress, like we were touching on earlier, it needs to be holistic. I mean, we don't just do family sessions. There is signposting to other agencies, collaboration with other professionals, but also, practical support. Is our finances difficult for the families that we work with? Can we do anything about that? Which then relieves some other pressures. So sometimes it is good to have talking therapy and talking intervention, but sometimes you need practical support as families. And we've evolved, and we're doing that. We're also looking at we are doing a perpetrator program, because the link between adult domestic abuse and child to parent abuse is too big for us to ignore and not do anything about. So every time we find a need, we try to adapt what we do and bring in something else. And so the perpetrator program hopefully will be up and running by the January, February, because it may seem, well, why you're working with perpetrators, but I guess if we can support just one perpetrator to stop, or to stop what they're doing, that's going to be less victims.
But also, we don't want the children, where they are being aggressive, to grow up to be an adult perpetrator.
No.
And it's not looking at perpetrators as perpetrators, it's looking at them with hope that they can make right decisions for themselves and their families. It's not about labeling them as a perpetrator, just as we did with a child. And I think that's where sometimes people might find that difficult.
And it may well be, maybe in the future, that we do not parenting classes, but teaching parents to have solution-focused conversations, so that they can have those conversations at home rather than having to come to an outside agency. So that's, we've got a lot to do next year.
Well,
so there's
what I would invite people who know someone who might have, and it doesn't have to be child to parent abuse, but it could be something that might lead on to that, maybe. Make the most of the free workshops that you find, because what happens is we only join workshops or training when we believe that we are presented with that problem. But actually, if there's any sign at all that you might be losing control, or that your child is struggling with anxiety, whatever it might be, don't wait. We know, as adults, we need to take it in our own hands and do something about it, and not rely on services to do it for us, because that never works. Because it's ultimately you guys at home. It's ultimately you guys that have to deal with this every single day. And we're here, like Joe said, to ask silly questions and to believe in you, because we do. Otherwise, you want to be sitting in front of us or talking to us via Zoom. But make the most of educating yourselves, not just by workshops, but also by observing your household and the people in your household. And look out for times when things are going well, what your children enjoy doing. And as parents, including me, I know my child really, really well. But actually, when I stop, and Joe and I work very, very long hours, when I stop to observe my 11-year-old who's going through something, I actually notice all the fantastic things that she's good at. I actually notice it, rather than her being a little shy and trying to talk back to me, and sometimes us. And that really helps. That helps me as a parent. And I think parents really should take those opportunities. When you see things advertised, go for it. They're there for a reason, and make the most of it.
Yeah, and again, it's going back to that point that our clients are the expert. The parent, you are the expert in your child. You know your child better than anyone will. And sometimes we can get fobbed off from agencies, maybe, it could be this, could be that. If you instinctively know there's something not right and I need to fix it, You're the expert in this. You know it better than anyone. Don't like Ayse says, don't wait until it becomes blatantly obvious. And sometimes you have to make yourself a pain. Sometimes you're just going to have to do that. Otherwise, people will try and fob you off. But you know your child better than we ever will. So that's why our intervention is led by the parent. It's not led by us. Because how will I know your kid better than you?
No. But like Anon said, praise is so important, and he or she has learnt that. And it really is. But it's not just about praising our kids, it's about praising ourselves, which is something we're not used to doing. But actually, the way I handled that was, okay, could I do that again? And what would that look like? How can I improve on that? It's just asking those questions about self-improvement, which then has a knock-on effect with your partner, with your children, with your parents, whatever, at work. So noticing the times that you're doing something well, that moment of brilliance, or those occasions where you think, actually, that was really good what I did, and it made this difference, it had this impact. And doing more of it. If we don't notice what our strengths are, how are we expecting to notice what our children's strengths are? Because you've got to be self-aware before you're aware of anyone else.
Right. So, come September time, we're going to have to do this, I think.
Do what?
And it will be training for parents. It won't be we're not going to sit here and advise you what to do with your children, although those conversations will happen. It will be training in how to have more beneficial, solution-focused conversations, not just with your kids, with your siblings, with your own parents, with professionals at schools. How can I have these solution-focused conversations? Because if we get people's backs up, they're going to fight back. And sometimes it's just asking a question in a different way that gets you a completely different response. So come September, look out for it on Facebook.
Well, and if people go to our website, there's a few on there that people can attend.
And this won't cost parents. This won't cost you anything. Don't. We're not plugging for money here. The way we see it is if more parents are taught this way of having conversations, and then you go out and you spread it in your families, and your family spread it to another family, then that's job done for us. We don't. We're not in this to make money out of you. So just let's get.
If there's any training that parents see online on Facebook, LinkedIn, or our website, that does have a small cost, because some of them are at a small cost, some of them are free. Just email us, because we'll just send you the link. Because we don't charge any parent. But if you are part of an organisation, please do pay, because we are a charity. Just letting you know. Because otherwise, in 2 years' time, you may not have us. So you kind of got to be a little bit shrewd with that. But any parents genuinely out there, you see anything that we're delivering that you want to attend that has a £5, £10 cost, we don't expect you to pay. Just email us, and you can, spread that.
We'll do some remotely. So in case you can't get to the office, or it's the wrong time or the wrong day, so we'll do some sessions in the office, but we'll probably be doing a lot more Zoom training. So look out for it. We'll do them at times where we think it's a reasonable time for people. We want people who work to also be able to access it, so it won't be silly time during the day.
Well, it's kind of a difficult one though, isn't it, Joe? Because you do one on a Saturday and you've got a football club or whatever. You do one in the evening, people are cooking food. You do one during the day, some people are at work. So I think it's a matter of just offering 3 different times. But I mean, there was one a couple of weeks ago and no one signed up to it. Just saying. Just saying, guys. So if you've got any suggestions of anything else Joe and I can do to support, do let us know, because we can't not have people attend. Otherwise, what's the point in us offering it? But actually, I'm a bit bored of this conversation now.
Yeah. What's
Joe,
next?
what's it like working at FBS, Mr. Co-founder?
No.
Go on.
It's lovely. Yeah, it's really nice.
And is that your end of convo on that one?
What do you mean? Well, it's like it's not work. That's how you know you're enjoying it.
Damn right.
Yeah. It's. Don't get me wrong. It's not. It can be frustrating. And you can. It's. You know, it's highs and lows when you think families are moving forward, and sometimes they stutter, and sometimes they go backwards. But that's just life. That's family life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I don't class it as work really.
No.
So that's the biggest.
Do you look forward to waking up and coming to work?
Yeah, I don't look at Sunday at 5 like I used to in my old job and think, oh God, I've got to go work tomorrow. It's not like that at all. So yeah, but please sign up to these things. I think it's going to be useful.
Joe's doing that look. He's emotional.
Because I know from, you know, from all the sessions that we've done, that these conversations can be really, really enlightening. And if you can have those conversations at home, even with kids that just give you yes or no answers, there's still ways of making that just a little bit longer. And you'll even if you don't have issues in your family, there's always we're never the finished article. Even as professionals, we're never the finished article. There's always things that we can learn. So come along, because it would be nice to meet people and do a bit of training and see what you think.
Talking of meeting people,
Yeah.
we've been all around the world.
We have. Since Zoom, we have.
We've been to India, we've been to Singapore, we've been to New Zealand, we've been to Colorado, we've been to Columbus, we've been to Canada, we've been to Holland, Sweden, Denmark, Scotland.
Yeah.
Have I forgotten anywhere? We've been everywhere. And you know what? And this is in fear that I'll forget names, so I'm going to try not to give any names. But my God, are we thankful that such a rubbish time in everyone's lives to do with, COVID and the lockdown has been very insightful for us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, just today we were just having this lovely conversation with Owen, who's an SF practitioner. Just talking. But within that, you learn so much.
Yeah. May the 20th. Why have you got May the 29th and the 30th there?
Right, May the 29th and 30th. People, this is my begging face. So we have... So on the 30th, some of us are going to be skydiving to raise funds for family-based solutions. And some people said that they don't want to skydive. So what we've declared, or what I've kind of suggested is, here's one of them, is that maybe on the 28th, on the 29th or 30th, we kind of declare it as FBS fundraising weekend. So basically, you all come up with your own fundraising ideas. I know that some of us will be eating bugs, critters, as well as skydiving. So whatever you guys can come up with, swimathon, a silence, a quiz, I don't know, think creative. Swimming with sharks, that's brilliant. Whatever it might be, Joe doesn't know what he's doing yet. No. Do you?
I thought I was going to do cycling.
I thought you were joking.
Well, what else can I do?
I don't know, because yeah, why don't you just eat critters with us?
Oh, no. I held the tarantula, didn't I, before? That was scary, man. That was scary, that tarantula. Although
the
it was quite
tarantula
sweet.
was so cute and lovely. So it's about raising funds for family-based solutions, and some of you may know about our red tin. And I know someone watching this knows about our red tin. And that red tin is basically where we put donations or any money raised. And that is kind of just left there until we really need it, either to pay for outbound activities or if there's an emergency with a family. So none of it goes into our pocket at all. It goes directly to work with FBS families, whatever that might look like at the time. So these are really, really, really important. And charities, we've got to think strategically in helping us be sustainable. Yeah, so the 29th and 30th, have a look on our events page and either book yourself a tandem skydive or be creative. And if there are any costs, so if you're going to book your skydiving, make sure you let us know how much that is and we'll pay that up front, but you've just got to make sure that you raise more money to cover it. So if it's £150, we'll pay the £150, but we've just got to, you just got to make sure that you raise at least 200, for example.
All right.
Anything else you want to say? Is there anyone that wants to ask any questions before we go? Is this the moment where I regret asking that because we're just going to sit here? But yeah, someone's done a tandem skydive, never again. I have loads of ideas. And I know who wrote this. And I know this is a very, very, very creative lady. And I'm sure if she says she has other ideas, she has some tricks up her sleeve.
Can she give me some then? Yeah,
can this person please involve Grandpa Joe over here, who gets a bit of, but hold on a minute, but at least she did it.
Yeah.
She's now living the tale, and she can now say, did it, didn't like it, never again. You can't even say that.
No. Terrible.
And some people have also already from last year paid for their family-based solutions and platinum performing arts, our dinner and dance, which the year before was amazing. So what was that like for you, Joe, a couple of years ago at that dinner and dance?
It was lovely. I really enjoyed myself.
Did you?
Yeah. What, you couldn't tell?
No, you did enjoy yourself. No,
it's going ahead, right?
Yeah, that's in March. So those people that have already booked on would have been invited to the new events page. And Joy, who has been the lady that I've been referring to, who skydived. Well done, Joy. She said she paid, as she did last year, one of the first. I can't wait. And it's going to be a night to remember. I know that some of you have requested to kind of join us. Sold out, sorry. But it is going to be a night to remember. And Nina Lewis, who is the founder of Platinum Performing Arts, she's absolutely amazing. She's done really well with organising yet again. So yeah, that's going to be a really, really cool night. But do look on our website, do email us. And hold on, she wrote something. I've always got to read what she wrote. I doubt due to COVID, I'll get into that cocktail dress. Oh no, you look wonderful. I only saw you on Saturday. You always look wonderful. We've just got to pick a shirt out for Joe.
Yeah, to go with me jeans.
Really?
Black jeans.
Okay. Well, we'll see. So if you see Joe and I walking around Marks and Spencer's or Next out fighting, arguing, you'll know it's because we're choosing something that he's going to be wearing at the do. But yeah, so do email us if there's anything that anything you want us to talk about live, then just do let us know, and keep an eye out for any of the workshops that are coming up. But like I said, please do look on our website. They're all there. And if you want to join as a parent, please do email us and we will send you the link so you don't have to pay. We done?
Done.
Right, what are we eating for dinner?
I know.
That's an argument we're going to have now. See you guys soon. Thank you all for watching, and take care.